we are with our app. The first app was from yesterday. The second tab is from today. Here we have our sections: Africa, Asia, North America, Europe, and South America. Right? Couple things we'll do before we introduce segue. We will add a detailed text label to that cell. Okay? So we'll go ahead and add a detailed text label to give the description of the country like we did yesterday. So to do that, we will simply say here, cell dot detail text label dot text equal to, what is it going to assign to? Country description. Great. Is that it? Is it going to work if we run it? According to Mr. Surinder, thank you very much, sir. You have to go to Interface Builder. You have to go to Interface Builder to set the cell from custom to what? From custom to subtitle, right? According to Mr. Sir. Very good. So here, let's go to Storyboard. Go to Storyboard. Storyboard, don't crash now. Behave. All right, so here we go to Storyboard, go to my continent scene. I click on the cell. I go to Attributes Inspector. I zoom in on Attributes Inspector. So it's the style, that's what we need to change, the style of the cell. So it goes from custom here to subtitle. With that change, our cell also renders a title and a subtitle. So at this point, we could run our app. You guys need to stop it before we get to the... I do step 1, 2, 3, then step 3, guys are like, wait. Stop me at step 1, okay?
I was waiting for my
Step 1, we got to the storyboard. Step 2, we clicked on the cell in the continent view controller scene. Cool?
Yeah, what?
Many people talking. Which one first? Yes, sir. In the cell for row for the continents. In the cell for row for continents. In cell for row for continents, right here. Cell for row for continents. Okay? How are we doing? Did we get it? If you run your app again, we should see a description of the country. Right? I do get a description of Nigeria here, home of Afrobeat, home of Fela Kuti. Who knows Fela Kuti? How many people know Fela Kuti? If you don't, go home and Google it. Yes. The guy's a legend. Yes, sir. You need... Okay, go back to your view controller in the cell for row. You have text label. You have detailed text label. Mel, did you get your palm sorted out? Sleepy? It's a long day. You get in there. The battery is going to get charged. So, Mr. Dan, we have text label. We have detailed text label. Okay. All right. Everybody is up to date with what our continents looks like. Tanya, how does your continents look? How does the country look? Do we have sections? That was before lunch. You see, guys need to stop me earlier. Okay. All right, cool. One thing I'll show us how to make a label resize itself. Right? I'll show us how to make a label resize itself. So far, all our text labels, our detailed text label, everybody, so far our detailed text label, all lines are one, right? All the lines are one. I want them to have multiple lines. Okay? Let's see how to do that. Unfortunately, we cannot do it in Interface Builder. We have to do it in code. Okay? We have to do it in code. We're coders, right? Right? So let's go ahead and set that up. So here, right in my, again, everybody should be in the cell for row at index path for the continents view controller. I'm in the cell for row for continents view controller. We're only working on continents view controller right now. Are we all there before I move on? Are we all in the cell for row at? Okay. So in my cell for row at, I'll say cell dot detail text label dot number of lines equal to 0. The default, remember when we introduced UI label, we said the default is what? What's the default for a label? How many lines does a label have? 1. The default for a label, number of lines, is 1. Okay? If you want your label to grow with the content of the label, you set number of lines to 0. So now you're not explicitly telling the label your line should be 1. You're telling it grow based on the content of it. Okay? Let's see if that made a change. Go ahead and run your app again. Multiple rows. Multiple, not rows, multiple lines. Here, look at that. It might not be the best UI we want. We have some more work to do there. But now our content grows based on, what's in there of the label. Are we all able to see all the content of the label? We talk about custom cells, but here this would be an ideal candidate for a custom cell, where we want to customize the cell to look the way we want it to look, because there's only so much you could go with the default cell, right? So Friday we start talking about custom cells and what that looks like, right? Where we have a cell, we give it exact pixels, not pixels, but points. But here there's not too much configuring you could do with the cell you've given, right? So for now, I'm just showing you guys, here we could see all the contents of the label. Everybody could see all the contents, right, of the label, the detailed text label. For now, let's go back to 0, but I just wanted to show us what that looks like. Let's go back, sorry, not to 0, but just comment that out. That doesn't look pretty. Right? We'll use a segue to show more details for that particular page. So go back to your second view, right? And we'll use a segue. Let's see what segues is. We talk about segues. We've done segues, by the way. When we control drag from the button over to our next view controller, that was a segue. But now we need to do segue in code. Okay? So far, so good. Everybody? All right, let's go to our storyboard. Can I continue? Let's go to our storyboard. And we need to drag in the next view controller. We love dragging in view controllers here. So for my table view, the bottom one, the one we're working on, the one called Contents View Controller, I need to get a new view controller. So I'm going to get a new view controller over here. New view controller. In that view controller, let's just get an image view for now. We'll probably add more things later. But for now, get an image view, UI, image view. Dragging an image view to, okay. Yeah, exactly. Yes, we might get fancy or not, based on the time. We got 12 minutes. We got 30 minutes. We said 4:10, right? 4:10? All right, yes. Okay, so we're going to control drag. Right now, we're controlling drag in from the cell, not the table view. Control drag from the cell over to that new view controller we have. Control drag from the cell. Make sure you click on the cell. Make sure that little box shows up. Make sure table view cell shows up here. To the super view. Good question. Not to the image view, to the super view, to the white view. Okay, so we control drag from my cell over to the view controller. And we'll select show segue. So where it says show segue here, we'll select show segue. Click on that. Great. Look at that. We got the continents back button. Again, we got the back button. Why did we get the back button? Anybody?
Because that's how we go back.
Yes, that's how we go back. But how did we get the back button?
Because it shows
The navigation controller, Mr. Eric, right? The navigation controller gave us that back button. Everybody? Okay? Very important. Great. We won't set the title. We'll set the title in code. Let's keep going here. We need a class. Anytime you drag in a view controller, you need a class to manage it. Everybody? Everybody. So we need a class to manage this. Right? Actually, yeah, that's fine. Let's go and create a class. For the class, I'll create a class. I'll call it a new file, yes. It's going to be called, we could call it country detail view controller. Cocoa Touch. Country view controller is good, that's fine. Cocoa Touch, so new file, Cocoa Touch class. Cocoa Touch class. Next, for the name here, I'll call it country detail view controller. It's fine. I press next. I make sure targets is selected. I click create. And now I have a new view controller. We'll come back to that view controller soon. For now, let's go back to the storyboard. New file, Cocoa Touch file. We call it country detail view controller. Country detail view controller. Cool? All right, so we go back to the storyboard. What do we need to do? What do I need to do to that new scene that I put in? I just created a class. I dragged in a new view controller scene. What else do I need to do? Right, so I need to assign the view controller. I need to make our country view controller manage the scene. Where do I go to do that? In what inspector? Identity. I need to know myself. Identity. Very good, sir. All right, so here, click on my new view controller, go to the identity inspector, and where it says class here, I want to change the class. I want to go from UI view controller to country. Make sure you say country, right? We have a continent, be careful there. Make sure it says country, and make sure we press enter, right? Enter brings us that blue check. It tells us now this is part of the project. Make sure you press enter. So I clicked on my view controller, the new one that we dragged in. I went to the identity inspector, and then I went to class, and I updated it to country.
Oh, so this view is going to have
Be managed by the country view controller.
right, but they're going to be different, like the picture's always going to change. So each time that you click on the picture's going to change.
So as we expect it to, right? When we use apps, right? Very good. Very good. Okay, so how are we doing here? Good. Let's run the app and see where we are. What's that? What's the question? You had a question? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. We just set in the class. It was in the identity inspector. So we have a scene. The scene needs to be managed by a view controller, right? So we needed to go to the identity inspector to update the UI view controller class over to the new custom class we created. All right. Okay. So let's see. If I click on any cell, what happens? It does segue. Everybody, it should segue. It segues over, but right now the image hasn't been updated. Of course, we coded, we have to do more work. It's not all that simple as control drag. We need to do some more work here.
Do we add the text field
We'll add more, but I really want to get to the heart of segue today. Okay? Adding elements, we know how to do that. We know how to drag in a label. We know how to get a label to the view controller. We know that. Cool? But the heart of it is, what does segue look like in code? Cool? All right, so let's go to code here. I will go to, where am I coming from? What controller am I coming from? What controller is this? This is the continents controller, correct? Okay, so everybody's up paying attention here. Are we going to continue, or we continue tomorrow? Okay, don't kill me. Okay. I just want to make sure our pulse is all there, right? All right, so we'll continue. Let's continue. So I'm in my continents view controller. Make sure you're in the continents view controller. Right now we have 3 view controllers. This is really multiple MVC, right? All right, cool. I mean, yes, we have one model, but that's fine. I'm in the continents view controller. Do we all see where our load data is? Do we all see where our load data is? In my load data, I'll enter some more spaces here. So I'm still in my class. I'm not in the extension. Everybody, the extension is only for the UI table view data source. Andy, question? No. Okay. I am inside my continents view controller, outside of the load data function, correct? Everybody? I will type in prepare for segue, and I'll press enter. I'll type in prepare for segue, and I'll press enter. What is this method? This method gets called every time a segue is detected. When does this method get called? Every time a segue transition is detected. So when I select the cell, this function gets called, right? I override that function to have more logic in there. The logic we need to pass data A we need to pass data from view A to view B. How does my country detail view know what country it should show? Right now, there's no way to do that. Everybody with me? The only thing I'm able to do is segue. But along the segue, I need to pass data. Today is the first day we'll see how to pass data from object 1 to object 2 using the prepare for segue function. Okay? Prepare for segue is on every view controller. Same as we have view did load on every view controller, we have prepare for segue on every view controller, which makes sense. A view controller wants to segue. It wants to go somewhere. Right? Cool?
Guys, I'll give you a hint. Like, really pay attention to this. This is where a lot of people get stuck.
And make the notes. All right, so we'll put a print statement in here. Let's put a print statement in here. That simply says, prepare for segue. Did we all put in a print statement? Okay, let's run our app again. Run our app again. And I go to my second tab. I click on any country. What did we see in the bottom? Did we see prepare for segue? Right? I go back to my first view. I click on Nigeria. Do we see prepare for segue again? Great. So as we said, as promised, prepare for segue gets called every time a transition is happening. So far, so good. Yulia, I see deer in headlights. It calls once if you go back. Click on the next cell. Any cell. Or click on the same cell. It doesn't matter. Right? Everybody, were you able to go back and forth and see prepare for segue getting called? Everybody. Right? Okay, cool. So, this is where we want to pass data from object 1 to object 2. This is where we pass the data. So here is where we will pass data from this view controller to the country detail. VC for short. VC for short, you'll see that being used a lot. VC stands for view controller, okay? So here is where we will pass data from this view controller, meaning the continents view controller, this view controller, here, continents view controller to, I just type out the whole thing, country detail view controller. So here is where we want to pass data from this is where we want to pass data from the continents view controller to the country details view controller. Any questions so far? And when we talk about data, what data do we want to pass? What data do we want to pass to our country details view controller? Description is one thing. That's one piece of data from the country. What else? A what? Image. Image is the next piece of data. What has all the information for the country? The cell, all that is good. The struct. What's that? The array is one thing. The country has all its information, right? So don't pass only a description, or do not pass only an image. Pass in the country, right? On the country, we could say country thumbnail image. We could say country description. We could say country name. Everybody with me?
Yeah.
If you think you only need the description, please don't just pass in the description. Pass in the entire country, okay? So from our particular continents view controller, we'll pass whatever was tapped on, we'll pass that entire country to our country detail view controller. Everybody with me? Whatever set I selected, I want to pass that entire country. If it's Nigeria, I want to pass country, where country is Nigeria, okay? All right, so this is where we do it, and the data we're interested in, we get in there. We will pass the selected country to the, we'll pass the selected country. We'll pass the selected country to this guy. All right. Great. Okay, so how do we get that? We get that via, we need to get access to the view controller. For now, I'll say VC in here. VC stands for view controller. We need to know where we're going. Where we're going is the destination. Here we have a segue. We have a segue parameter. The segue parameter gives us information, two things. It tells us where we are. The source is where we are. It tells us where we're going. The destination is where we're going. On a segue, we have two properties we're interested in. Let me write it here. So here, segue has a source and a destination property. We need the destination property here, especially. So again, segue is coming from our method, right? We have segue. We also have sender. In your case, you were talking about sender. Sender is the thing that did the action, okay? And then it's a type any because it could be anything. It could be a button. It could be a cell. It could be anything. It could be a switch. It could be any. That's why any is here. But the segue is what we're interested in. First piece of data, where are we going? So where are we going? We use segue dot destination. What type is destination? What type is destination? It's a UI view controller, correct? is the parent of my country view controller. Everybody with me? This is not enough. Remember, the parent is the parent. The child might have other properties as well, right? The child in that case is my country detail view controller. It will have its own properties. So I need to explicitly say I'm going to the country detail view controller. How do I do that? I say destination, right? I could use typecasting. Again, all those coming together, right? Why do we need typecasting? What's all that stuff for? I could use typecasting here, and I could say as the thing that I expect it to be. I expect this to be a country detail view controller. I could use a guard statement here. I could use an else here. And return. And instead of VC here, I'll simply say country detail view controller. If we option click on country DVC, what type is it? Option click on country DVC, what type is it? Option click on country DVC. It's a country detail view controller. This is the type we expected. Okay? So far, so good. Let us continue on. Any questions before we move on? Why do we have sender? We casting it to the type we're expecting because that type, we need to have a property on it as well. That type will have a country property. And we need to say at some point country DVC dot country equal to the selected country. And if we don't typecast it, we won't get access to that property on the child view. Okay? That's why we typecast it. Okay? All right, so let's keep going. Yes?
It gives you the option to fix, right? I know we're not supposed to be fixed, but I was curious as to what the fix is. And it switches it to segue.destination is, and then...
That's not what we want. We want to typecast it, so if it breaks, we have a valid error. All right, so here I have one more piece of code to write. Sorry about that, but it gets a little bit more involved now. We've used guard statements before. We've used if-lets before. We know we could chain them together, correct? Correct? Now I need to know the index path. What index path got selected? I need to know what index path got selected. So here I'll simply say let index path, which is an optional as well, table view dot index path for selected row. So the option you want to use is index path for selected row. Which row did I select? Everybody, I need to know which row I selected. Else, how can I get access to that index in that array? I need to know which index path I selected. Everybody with me? So this is that property here. So now we have two pieces of information that we need. One, we know where we're going. We know where we're going. Remember, the goal of this is to pass data. The goal of prepare for segue is to pass data from A to B. Everybody with me? The B, I need to know what the B is. The B here is my country detail view controller. The item that was selected, I need to know what item was selected. How do I know which country got selected? Is it Nigeria, right? Is it Mexico? Is it Ecuador? Dominica? Which one got selected? The which one got selected is this index path here. How do I get that index path? It is using our table view. We have access to our table view, right? The table view knows which cell got selected. How does it know? It has this property here. Give me the index path for the selected row. Some row was selected. Give me that index path. It's optional, right? So we have to unwrap it. How do we unwrap those two values? We use guard. We said guard is very powerful. We use guard here. We said guard let country detail view controller. And we said guard, which is still implemented here. Give me the index path. So I have the index path. I have the country detail view controller. Any questions before we move on? I'm actually going to show you guys something else, but I'll keep it for now. I'm going to show you fatal error, but I'll keep it for now. Because really and truly, you want the app to crash if something went wrong here, and something shouldn't go wrong. Okay? But for now, we just simply say return. We're not returning anything because the function doesn't return anything. Okay, let's continue on. One piece of thing, go ahead.
I know this is probably like two or three answers question, but if a function does not return something, then why do we still have to put the return?
That's valid. It also says it doesn't return anything, by the way. That return statement is to exit the function.
Oh,
Okay? This particular return,
It still says return.
exactly, exits the method or function. Cool? All right. This is void. This is a void function.
Because it returns nothing.
It doesn't return anything.
And it technically has, no, it does have parameters, but
It doesn't return, like in here, we have no arrow,
right.
right? Cool. All right. We have 8 minutes. Let's update something here. So now we will go over, to our country detail view controller. Over your view did load, add in var country. So let's go to our detail view controller. Right above my view did load. Right above my view did load for my country detail, expected data is a country object, right? What does that look like? We'll simply say var country, and we will say it's the type country, like that. And I'll use implicit unwrapping here, right? So here, my country, where this gets set, let's actually put some notes in here. This property gets set in the prepare for segue method from the continents view controller. This is where we're going to be setting that property, right? Because the minute that view controller comes on screen, this should be set. This should be set, and then I could update my image view. Everybody, we haven't added our image view, but for now, you could simply add in an IB outlet here. It's going to be weak var. It's going to be an image view. It's going to be of type UI image view. Implicit return, implicit unwrapping here. We'll connect it later.
I have a question. How come you didn't put that exclamation?
Because right now it doesn't have a value. It doesn't have a value. So we use implicit unwrapping here. At some point it needs to be set. It will be set, but it hasn't been set yet. Very similar to our image view. This is the same syntax. It's saying the minute this comes on screen, it should have a value. Currently, it doesn't have a value, but at some point, it should have a value from my continents view controller. Okay? You could also use a question mark, but you have to unwrap it. With implicit, it's implicitly unwrapped. You don't have to use unwrapping again.
I saw that without the exclamation point, so that it has no initial.
Exactly, because remember, we're in a class, we're not in a struct, so we have to initialize our properties.
Right.
Okay? And this is one way to initialize it, or you could also initialize it like this, or you could give country a default country. Cool? All right, so let's keep going. We haven't connected the image view. We haven't connected the image view yet. But I only added the code here. Actually, let's just take that out. Did you guys type this out? Okay, type it out. Get in the habit of either typing it out or dragging it from Interface Builder. Typing it out, you actually know what you're typing. So here you type it out, you say IB outlet. It's an outlet you need to connect. It's not connected yet. We will connect it, everybody. And it's a weak var. The name is ImageView. Colon. It's a UI image view. Implicit unwrap. And we'll connect it after. We'll connect it after we finish with the prepare for segue. Because we're not done with prepare for segue yet. We have to set this property here. If we do not set this property, the app will crash. All right. So in my viewed load for now, we still have access to this, right? In my viewed load, again, we'll come back to this again tomorrow to continue it. But in my viewed load, I'll simply say ImageView.image equal to UI image named. And for the string, very similar to what we did earlier, we'll say country dot, but here we don't use the thumbnail, right? Here we use the full image. So remember, in the cells, we use the thumbnail, correct? Here we're using the full name. Oh, sorry, the full image name. We want to get a bigger image. While we're here, let's just connect it, actually. So I'll get my assistant editor open. I'll keep this open for us to see. But I'll get to my assistant editor. That way we could connect the image view and be done with that particular part. I'll come back to the code right now. Let's just get to the image view, and we'll connect the image view. So my image view is here. I open up my assistant editor. And this is my assistant editor here. Great, great, great. And I simply now just drag over. If we did, and we all did the IB outlet, right? We typed it out. Now we could just connect our IB outlet over to our image view. Everybody? Right? I could simply connect it here, and it's connected. And I'll set the constraints for my image view. I'll just keep it center for now. Actually, let's take it to the top. Let's take it to the top here. And let's take it to the bottom here. So to the top, we'll set it 0, leading 0, and trailing 0. So let's set the constraints for the image view. So we have 0, 0, 0. I don't want you to be here, sir. 1 second. And for the height, maybe make the height like 30, 40%. Try 40% first for the height. 1 second, let's redo the constraints. So click constraints. So, that's the power. My bar is lower. There we go. So make sure your image view snaps at the bottom of the bar, because it needs to be 0. And go to add constraints and set 0 for the bottom of the bar, 0 for leading, 0 for trailing. Those are 3 constraints. And for the next constraint, we want to say, drag it to the view, control drag to the view, and make it equal width, equal heights, and give it a ratio of, say, 40%. See what that looks like. It might be too much space. That's okay for now. We could just equal heights, because the width comes from 0 edge, 0 trailing, 0 leading, right? So we don't have to give it a width. Cool? All right.
What was the top?
The top was, make sure it's to the bottom of the bar, and it's 0. Yes, Anna? Control drag from your, you might have to control drag from your document outline, control drag from the image view to the safe area, and then do equal heights.
Did we have to save the image of that image onto something specific? Because for mine, that's images.
What part do you, what are you talking about?
For the override function, underneath country, mine comes up as
ImageView.images. It's just one image. Did you drag in? You probably drag in an outlet action.
I haven't dragged anything in yet.
But where you got ImageView from?
ImageView is what we created.
ImageView is just this image view here.
Oh, wait. That's why I have it as okay.
How are we doing? Did we connect our image view to our view controller? We're very close to the end of this.
Okay,
Did we connect our UI view to our image, to our view controller? Okay, last step, let's go to the prepare for segue and set the country. Everybody, let's go to prepare for segue and set the country. So far, so good? All right, let us go to continents here. So I'm in continents. I'm in prepare for segue for continents.
Where are we?
I'm in prepare for segue for continents.
No, what file?
I'm in prepare for segue for the continents view controller. Okay? Everybody? Everybody? Can we continue?
You want to, sorry. I was trying to think something well. So
Majid, where are you?
I'm just trying
The bottom, so the 0 is 0, and leading is 0, trading is 0. And for the height, you can make a hard code height for now, because this is not a constraints question. For the height, it should be about 40% of the height of the device. Or the safe area. Drag it to the safe area. Cool? Majid? Good? Come back to the constraints later. The most important part is the prepare for segue. Come back to constraints later. Everybody, are we in prepare for segue? Are we in prepare for segue? Can we continue? Okay, so in prepare for segue, we want to set our country. So set country on country DVC here. Yulia? Good? All right, so here we have access to the country DVC here. On it, we have a property called country. How do we get access to a country? We get access to a country very similar to what we did in cell4row at. Again, this is an array of arrays, right? So we have to use index section, index row. So let's go ahead and do that. What is the data is called continents. So continents index path dot section index path dot row, right? Because we have the index path here. We have the index path here, and we have access to the section and the particular row that was selected. So if we option click on our country, it's a country. It makes sense, right? So here we've gotten the country from our array of arrays. Very similar, again, that code here is very similar to the cell4row. What we did earlier, very similar. We have an array of arrays. We access our element via the index section and the index row. That's all we want to set. At this point, we should have enough information to run the code and test it out. So we go to our second tab. We click on Nigeria. And look at that. We have Nigeria, but does it work for other countries? If I click on Russia, I get Russia, right? So Russia flag is Russia. If I click on Jamaica, oh, I want to be here right now, right? Is it working for all of us? Are we able to segue? Amini, do you have an error?
my issue is I had to follow
How are you doing, sir?
Mine says cannot send audio to country.
What do you have on your country DVC? Is it very similar to our code? Mel, did you all segue?
I'm having an error on my
On your UI image view, what does the error say? What's the error say on the UI image view? Cassandra, did you get yours to segue? Brendan? Okay. Greg, how are we doing? Anna? What's your error? What's the error? I need to know the errors. We need to know the errors. Is your image view of type image view? Were you able to segue? Yes. What What is the error? Okay, at this point, most of us got our cell to segue, correct? We got the image to show, right? Yes? Okay, to finish off, you could finish off, right? You guys could add a description at the bottom or the top. One other thing I'll show us before I stop the lecture is how to change the title in code. How to change the title of the nav bar in code. Amini, how you doing? Okay. How to change the title of the nav bar in code. Let's go ahead and do that, and we'll wrap up lecture. So the detail view here has enough information to set the title. Here we are setting up the image view. We could set the title, so set title of navigation bar. I'm in the country detail view controller. I'm in the country detail view controller. I'm in the viewed load of the country detail view controller. I'm setting the title of the navbar using the country name. So here I simply say title equal to country.name. So that sets the navigation bar title. I run my code again. This is in the country detail view controller. I run my code again. I click on my second tab. I click on Nigeria. It shows Nigeria here, even with the flag, so beautiful. And I go back. I go to St. Lucia, beautiful country. You should go there one day. Right, look at the pitons here, so beautiful. Right. Okay, it shows us the detail view. I go to Ecuador. Look at that. Genesis is going to take us all here. Right? Are we able to see our title change? Yes? Okay, cool. So we did a lot today. Luba, what's your question? In the viewed load for my country detail view, Luba, I simply said title equal to country.name. Okay? Okay, we did a lot today. Let's just review what we did for the last 2 days with the UI, with the code. So if I go back to my first tab, we created a tab bar controller. Our tab bar controller has 2 children, right? Or 2 view controllers, right? The first tab was from yesterday's work. We had a simple, basic table view that shows a subtitle cell. It showed the country name and the detailed text of that country. So far, so good? We did sorting, right? We were able to sort the country alphabetically here, up and down, descending, ascending. Today, we created a second tab here. Let's go back, which has a section now table view. This table view has sections. Part of the heavy lifting today, we had to create a method called GetSections that made the sections. So revisiting that code is very important. Go back over the code, make your own notes. What you don't understand, come back to us. I don't understand that line. Because understanding how to make sections is very important to programming, especially iOS. Your designer might be like, hey, I want to create sections based by this, whatever it is. And you have the data, you have the raw data, you have to use the raw data to make some function, some algorithm that spits out an array of arrays. With the array of arrays, you could go ahead and do your sections in your table view. So far, so good? We saw how vital it was to have an array of arrays. We have index path, that section, that row, we get our section. Cool? So this is what we did for the continents. So we started off with Africa all the way down to South America, and we sectioned them out. Great. Next step, we introduced, or we also did image views, so we know how to set up image views too on a cell. Then we said, when you click on the cell, I want to segue. What does that mean, segue? I want to transition from this view controller to another view controller by selecting an item. When I say selecting an item, I click on one of those cells, I click on Ukraine, it segues to my country detail view controller, it shows me an image of Ukraine, right? So I was able to segue, I was able to pass data. I didn't just segue, I also passed data, very important. Segue is not enough. I needed to go into my prepare for segue, right? Explicitly pass data, meaning get the country that was selected, pass that country from view A to view B. That's why we're able to see the Ukraine photo here. So this was prepare for segue. Again, a key method, go back, visit it, make notes, please. I'll say that, you won't do it, right? You'll break my heart. Please go back and visit those two methods. Visit, prepare for segue, make your own notes. Visit, get sections in the struct, make your own notes. Those two functions, you should know what's happening there. Those are two key functions for our next assignment coming up on Friday. Matt, you had a question? No? Okay, cool. If we have no more questions, I'll stop here. Cool?